Welcome to Delphi After Dawn. I am your host, Jason King. Tonight, we will be time traveling. Whitechapel, London, the year 1888. As the gas-powered lamplight flickers, you can see heavy soot fill the air. There's a serial killer on the loose. This is the chilling tale of Jack the Ripper. Let the story begin. London, 1888. A city shrouded in fog and fear. In the labyrinthine heart of London's East End, a nightmare was unfolding. The Whitechapel district became the hunting ground for a specter, Jack the Ripper. The victims, all women, were butchered with savage intensity. Whispers of the killer spread like wildfire through Whitechapel. The police struggled to make sense of the seemingly random attacks. The newspapers devoured every detail of the murders. Jack the Ripper remained an enigma, a shadowy figure lurking in the darkest corners. The fog that clung to Whitechapel seemed to embody the very essence of the Ripper case. Whitechapel, a labyrinth of cobbled streets and cramped alleyways. The air thick with the stench of coal smoke, sweat, and decay. The buildings, blackened by time and neglect, loomed over the narrow streets. For the inhabitants of Whitechapel, life was a constant battle against the odds. It was in this environment that Jack the Ripper would find his prey. Life in Whitechapel was a constant struggle for existence. Women, many of them widows, were often forced to turn to prostitution to survive. The police struggled to maintain order in this chaotic environment. As the sun began its descent, a palpable sense of unease settled over Whitechapel. The fog, its tendrils creeping in from the nearby River Thames, enveloped the streets. The gas lights cast a distorted, almost nightmarish quality over the scene. Word of the murders in Whitechapel spread like wildfire through the city. The police increased their patrols in Whitechapel, but the Ripper remained elusive. Fear gripped the city, exposing the vulnerability that lay at the heart of even the most civilized society. August 31st, 1888. The break of dawn cast a pale light over Buck's Row. The body of Polly Nichols lay sprawled on the cold ground, her life brutally extinguished. The news of Polly Nichols' murder spread through Whitechapel like wildfire. On September 8th, the Ripper struck again. Annie Chapman was found murdered, her throat slashed in a manner similar to the previous attack. The discovery of Annie Chapman's mutilated body sent a wave of terror through Whitechapel. September 30th, 1888. A night of swirling fog and palpable tension. Elizabeth Stride was found murdered, her throat slashed. Less than an hour later, Catherine Eddowes was found murdered, her body mutilated. The double murder sent shockwaves through Whitechapel and beyond. On November 9th, the nightmare reached its horrific crescendo. Mary Jane Kelly became Jack the Ripper's final and most gruesome victim. The murder of Mary Jane Kelly sent a collective shudder through Victorian society. After the murder of Mary Jane Kelly, the trail of Jack the Ripper went cold. Despite numerous suspects and countless theories, the identity of the killer who terrorized Whitechapel in the autumn of 1888 remains a mystery to this day. The fog that had shrouded his crimes seemed to swallow him whole, leaving behind a legacy of fear, fascination, and unanswered questions that continue to resonate to this day. The murders attributed to Jack the Ripper, brutal and seemingly motiveless, expose the dark underbelly of Victorian London, highlighting the plight of the poor and the vulnerability of women in a society that often turned a blind eye to their suffering. The fear that gripped Whitechapel in that autumn of terror would linger long after the last victim was laid to rest. A chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most civilized society. The legacy of Jack the Ripper is a complex and multifaceted one. He is both a historical enigma and a cultural touchstone, his crimes inspiring countless books, films, and works of art. But beyond the macabre fascination, the story of Jack the Ripper serves as a stark reminder of the human capacity for both good and evil, and the enduring power of mystery to captivate and terrify in equal measure. The murders in Whitechapel sent shockwaves through the heart of London. The pressure on the police to find the perpetrator was immense. The investigation proved to be a labyrinthine nightmare. Led by Inspector Frederick Aberline, the police faced an uphill battle. The fog mirrored the elusive nature of the killer. They scoured the streets for any scrap of evidence. But Jack the Ripper left behind little more than a trail of blood and terror. The investigation into the Whitechapel murders left the police inundated with contradictory and useless information. Cranks and self-proclaimed experts flooded the station with letters, some claiming to be from Jack the Ripper. Desperate for a breakthrough, the police sifted through red herrings and wild goose chases. They investigated countless suspects, leading them into the shadowy underbelly of Victorian London. Promising leads often led nowhere, leaving investigators no closer to the truth. Infamous letters, supposedly from the killer, added to the public's fear and media frenzy. These letters, often taunting and boastful, sometimes came with gruesome trophies. The police could never prove their authenticity, suspecting morbid pranksters. Misinformation and false leads hampered the investigation at every turn. The killer vanished, leaving a trail of blood and unanswered questions haunting Whitechapel. The list of suspects in the Jack the Ripper case is as long as it is varied, encompassing a wide range of individuals from the fringes of Victorian society. Butchers, doctors, artists, and even members of the royal family have all been put forward as potential candidates for the mantle of Jack. Yet, despite the passage of time and countless attempts to solve the mystery, the identity of the killer remains shrouded in speculation and doubt. Among the most notorious suspects is Montague Druitt, a barrister who disappeared shortly after the final canonical murder. His family claimed he suffered from mental instability, and some have theorized his disappearance was an admission of guilt. However, no concrete evidence links Druitt to the crimes, and his story remains just one of many tantalizing threads in the Ripper tapestry. Another suspect, Selwyn Kłosowski, a Polish immigrant who worked as a barber, was known to have a fascination with knives and a history of violence against women. He was eventually hanged for the murder of his wife, and some believe his modus operandi bore striking similarities to the Ripper's crimes. However, no direct evidence connects Kłosowski to the Whitechapel murders, and his guilt remains a matter of debate. The shadowy world of Victorian London, with its hidden alleys and teeming slums, provided ample opportunity for a killer to move unnoticed and disappear without a trace. The lack of modern forensic techniques, coupled with the social and economic disparities of the time, made it all too easy for a predator to exploit the vulnerable and escape justice. In the absence of a definitive answer, theories about Jack the Ripper's identity and motives have proliferated over the years. Some believe the killer possessed surgical skills, pointing to the precise mutilations inflicted on some of the victims. Others speculate he was a butcher, familiar with the anatomy of animals and the use of knives. Still, others propose he was a member of the upper classes, his crimes a twisted manifestation of power and control. One theory that has gained traction in recent years is that Jack the Ripper was a woman. Proponents of this theory point to the fact that some of the victims were found with their skirts pulled up, suggesting the killer may have been attempting to disguise himself as a woman to gain access to his victims or avoid suspicion. However, like all other theories surrounding the case, concrete evidence remains elusive. The psychological profile of Jack the Ripper, as constructed by modern criminal profilers, paints a picture of a deeply disturbed individual driven by a potent combination of misogyny, anger, and a need for control. The brutality of the crimes, the methodical nature of the attacks, and the apparent lack of remorse all point to a psychopathology that continues to fascinate and horrify in equal measure. Despite the efforts of amateur sleuths and professional investigators alike, the mystery of Jack the Ripper has proven to be remarkably resilient. The passage of time has only served to deepen the enigma, transforming the case into a macabre puzzle that continues to challenge our understanding of human nature and the nature of evil itself. The story of Jack the Ripper continues to captivate and horrify audiences more than a century after the murders in Whitechapel. The case has become a cultural phenomenon, inspiring countless books, films, documentaries, and even guided tours. Perhaps it is the enduring mystery that surrounds the killer's identity. The idea that a killer could vanish into thin air holds a certain macabre allure. Or perhaps it is the brutality of the crimes themselves that continues to shock and horrify. The story of Jack the Ripper serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in the heart of civilization, evil can lurk in the shadows. The Whitechapel murders quickly became a media sensation, their gruesome details splashed across front pages. The press, hungry for a story, seized upon the case with fervor. Sensationalized headlines, often with lurid illustrations, fueled public fascination. Another victim of the Whitechapel fiend, one headline blared. Jack the Ripper claims his fourth victim. Another proclaimed. The press played a significant role in shaping public perception. Detailed accounts heightened for fear and speculation about the killer's identity. The Whitechapel murders became a national obsession, discussed in drawing rooms and pubs. The city had become a stage for a macabre spectacle, with Jack the Ripper holding the audience captive. The written word, disseminated through newspapers, became a powerful tool in shaping the narrative of the Whitechapel murders. Journalists, eager to advance their careers, often resorted to sensationalism, blurring the line between fact and fiction. The victims' lives were reduced to a few paragraphs, overshadowed by the killer, a shadowy embodiment of evil. The letters purportedly written by Jack the Ripper added complexity to the media frenzy. These letters, filled with taunts and threats, were seized upon by the press as proof of the killer's depravity. The media's portrayal reflected the fears and anxieties of a society grappling with the dark side of human nature. Beyond the sensationalized headlines and lurid illustrations, a more nuanced and unsettling narrative emerged in the wake of the Whitechapel murders. Whispers of the killer's exploits, embellished with each retelling, spread through the overcrowded pubs and shadowy alleyways of Whitechapel like wildfire, their chilling details fueling the public's imagination and amplifying the sense of fear that permeated everyday life. Mothers, their faces etched with anxiety, clutched their children a little tighter as they hurried through the fog-choked streets, their eyes darting nervously into every darkened doorway and shadowy corner. Women, their livelihoods often dependent on venturing out after dark, walked in pairs or small groups, their footsteps echoing on the cobblestones, a constant reminder of their vulnerability. The Whitechapel murders had shattered the illusion of safety in a city that prided itself on its order and progress. The killer, it seemed, could be anyone, lurking unseen in the crowds, his motives as impenetrable as the fog that shrouded the streets. The fear he engendered was palpable, a suffocating presence that permeated every aspect of life in Whitechapel. The police, despite their best efforts, seemed powerless to stop the killer's reign of terror. Each new murder brought with it a fresh wave of panic, a collective shudder that rippled through the community, leaving in its wake a residue of fear and suspicion that would linger long after the last victim was laid to rest. As the body count rose, so too did the tension in Whitechapel and beyond. The murders had become a morbid spectacle, their details discussed in hushed tones. The city was holding its breath, waiting for the next gruesome discovery. Theories about the killer's identity and motives abounded, fueled by rumor and speculation. The police, under immense pressure, increased their patrols in Whitechapel, but Jack the Ripper remained elusive, his identity shrouded in mystery. The fog that had become synonymous with Jack the Ripper's reign of terror eventually lifted, but the shadow of his crimes continued to loom over Whitechapel. The murders had a profound impact on the social fabric of the district, leaving an indelible mark on its inhabitants. The immediate aftermath saw an increase in police patrols and a heightened sense of vigilance among the residents. Women, terrified of becoming the next victims, were hesitant to venture out alone, especially after dark. The streets took on an eerie stillness as fear permeated the air, transforming familiar routes into potential hunting grounds. The murders shattered the fragile sense of security that held the community together. Neighbors now eyed one another with suspicion, their conversations laced with fear and speculation. The trust that had once bound them together had been eroded by the realization that a killer walked among them. The fear that gripped Whitechapel in the autumn of 1888 exacted a heavy toll on its inhabitants. The murders, so brazen and public, had a chilling effect on everyday life. Women, terrified of becoming the next victims, were particularly vulnerable. Many were afraid to leave their homes, their movements restricted by fear. Those who had to work did so with a knot of anxiety, constantly scanning for danger. The economic impact was significant, with businesses suffering as customers stayed away. The murders had a polarizing effect on public opinion, fueling debates about poverty and morality. Some saw the victims as martyrs, while others viewed them as fallen women. The fear and uncertainty lingered long after the last victim was laid to rest. The Whitechapel murders, despite capturing the attention of the world, remain unsolved to this day. The identity of Jack the Ripper, who terrorized the East End in 1888, continues to be a subject of intense speculation and debate. Countless theories have been proposed implicating everyone from impoverished immigrants to members of the royal family. Suspects have been named, investigated, and dismissed, adding to the tangled web of speculation. Despite efforts, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains elusive. The passage of time has only amplified the mystery. The Whitechapel murders have become a cultural phenomenon, inspiring countless books, films, and tours. The case continues to captivate the public imagination. Its grip is strong today as it was over a century ago. The lamplight flickers in the East End. It struggles to pierce the darkness, just as it did all those years ago. The cobblestones, slick with rain, whisper tales of terror. They remember the weight of dread, the fear that clung to every corner. Though Whitechapel has transformed, echoes of the Ripper still linger. He is a ghost story, whispered in the shadows, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface. The victims, those women robbed of their voices, deserve to be more than just names on a list. They were daughters, mothers, sisters. They laughed, they loved, they dreamed. Their stories, tragic and cut short, deserve to be heard. In their memory, we must confront the societal ills that made them vulnerable. We must fight for a world where such tragedies are unthinkable. Today, we walk the same streets, our footsteps a counterpoint to the terror of the past. The Whitechapel murders serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of life, the ever-present potential for darkness to erupt in even the most unexpected of places. The case, with its chilling details and unanswered questions, continues to fascinate and horrify in equal measure. Jack the Ripper, a name synonymous with terror, remains an enigma, a phantom who vanished into the fog and mist of time. His crimes, brutal and precise, continue to defy explanation. Was he a surgeon, a butcher, a madman, or something even more sinister, hidden in plain sight? The mystery endures, a macabre puzzle that continues to challenge and captivate us. In the years since the Whitechapel murders, countless books, films, and theories have attempted to unmask the killer. Yet he remains elusive, a ghost story whispered in the shadows. The lack of a definitive answer only adds to his mystique, fueling our fascination with the macabre. He is a blank canvas onto which we project our fears, a symbol of the darkness that lurks within us all. The legacy of Jack the Ripper serves as a stark reminder of the power of fear, the enduring allure of the unknown. He is a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil can wear many faces, or even no face at all. And as long as his crimes remain unsolved, his shadow will continue to loom large over the annals of history, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of even the most civilized society. The fog may have lifted from Whitechapel, but the chill remains. Jack the Ripper, the unseen hand that sowed terror in the night, continues to haunt our collective imagination. A chilling reminder that some mysteries are destined to remain unsolved.